Good morning, everyone. We'll just let everyone join the room. Excellent to see you all this morning. So, good morning, good evening, good afternoon. My name is Phil Dyer. I am delighted that you have decided to spare 90 minutes of your lives this morning on this Saturday morning, which looks like a pleasant weekend in these islands, to join us on a amazing subject to upskill yourselves on copyright. All too often, we talk about public image and the importance of public image, but this is a real technical session today about copyright. And where better to start that skill journey with other than Dave King, known across these lands as the managing editor of the Rotary magazine. Good morning, Dave.
Good morning, Phil. Good morning, everyone. Thank you very much for the introduction. Are we well?
We're very well today, thank you. Yes, and I'm looking forward to your surprise technological feature today, and I'm sure our customers are today as well.
Well, let me kick off by let me try and share my slides, shall I? By way of just introduction. So I know that Phil, we ran this about 3 years ago, didn't we? We did a couple of years ago. We did a similar webinar like this, where we looked at copyright, and I know we had quite a lot of reaction then. I think there was a mixture of surprise about copyright. I think also some of the financial implications shocked a few people. Um, and I think since then, we've both, you as public image lead and myself, because of my role with the magazine, we've both been fielding a number of questions from Rotarians about copyright. And we just thought actually it'd be quite a good time for an update. So I'm not going to bore you with death by PowerPoint, but what I want to explain is what is quite a dry subject in an informative and in an entertaining way, but with particular relevance to you as Rotarians. So that by the end of it, I hope you'll have a decent knowledge of the topic at hand. We're going to try something a little bit different this morning. You probably can see on the holding slide there, Padlet and a QR code. Normally you get questions at the end of a particular session, and sometimes you've forgotten what was mentioned earlier. Well, what we're going to try and do to make this a little more interactive, and it's a bit of an experiment, so we'll see how it goes. Um, Take a copy of that QR code on your phone, and it will lead you to an app called Padlet. And what that it will enable you to do is during the course of this webinar, if you have a question, so click the plus button on the dialog screen that comes up, and that will enable you to type in a question. And both Phil and myself will be looking out for them. So what we can do is we can just put a pause on that particular point and address the question at that time. There will still, if you haven't fallen asleep, there will still be time at the end for some more questions. And also, while we're about it, Phil, you need to tell everyone about the bonus feature.
Yes, fantastic. Well remembered, Dave. Yes, and we've got a special recording by James Bolton from the support centre, but that will be packaged as bonus material, as all good YouTube videos are these days, and placed on YouTube. So at the end of the recording, there'll be a 15-minute section from James on where to get additional resources from, imagery, particularly touches on music and video that are all free to use. So well worth checking back after this video and looking in on James and his bonus material. Well remembered, Dave.
No, that's all right. So I'll keep that QR code on the slides, by the way. So if at any point you want to throw me and fill a question, do so, and we'll do our best to answer it. So yeah, just quickly by way of introduction, most of you will know me from Rotary magazine. I've been in the hot seat for 8 years now. They're not looking to fire me just yet, which is always good. By way of background, I'm a journalist. I've been an editor for over 40 years. And copyright's always been a key issue, by necessity there. I now teach media law and journalism at London University, where I'm the head of journalism, and so I've got some credentials along the way. So let's rewind a little. Phil, what were you doing in 1988? Come on, 1988, where were you?
88, I was just working. So I was Yeah, I like the Game Boy there. I like the Discman. I just started work. I was working for a building contractor called Shepherd Construction based in York. So yeah, I just started my first job. Yeah, that was me in 1988. What about you,
Okay.
Dave?
Well, I think I was actually starting a job in Bahrain. I went over there to work on a newspaper over there. I had considerably more hair then. I'm sure you had considerably more hair then too, Phil. Did you, or
Absolutely.
have you always been like that?
It's been a long time, but I think I probably just had a bit of fluff left then.
Anyway, but again, cast your mind back to 1988. Well, we had Margaret Thatcher as the longest serving prime minister. We had, unfortunately, the Lockerbie disaster where we had Pan Am Flight 103 exploding over the Scottish town. Um, in the charts, Phil, what do you think? What do you think was number one in the charts, 1988? I mean, how good is your knowledge back then?
Not very good, not very good at all, I'm afraid. But I would think
Kylie Minogue, what would be the number one?
Kylie Minogue, would it be it won't be like the locomotion or spinning around?
Oh, I should be so
I
lucky.
should be so lucky. Missed it. And a big fan
TV,
of Fancy.
I'm sure your your tea time TV was Neighbours,
Yeah, neighbours.
or you were watching Dirty Den's antics on EastEnders.
Yeah,
Um, 24 million viewers that year. Unbelievable,
4
unbelievable.
million.
And the top film in the cinema that year
Yeah,
was Fatal Attraction. Who was in that? Can you remember?
that was Michael Douglas
And
and Sharon Stone.
oh gosh, and how much do you think a loaf of bread cost in 1988?
A loaf of bread must have been 30p.
46 pence,
Oh,
the same price as a litre of petrol.
really? How times change.
So why am I waffling on about that? Well, it's because 1988 was the year when the government introduced the law that we're going to talk about called the Copyright Designs and Patents Act. Now, you don't need to trouble yourself too much about that because it's a law. I'll just explain what it's all about really for the next hour or so. But the idea of this law back in 1988 was to introduce something which could cope with the changing technology and the creative landscape as we were coming closer towards the 21st century. And I guess that's what we're going to be looking today at how that law has really aged or hasn't aged when we talk about copyright in the 21st century. So, um, again, here are a few questions for you to tackle. And Phil, you can go for it as well. And for everyone who's watching, please have a quick think there. So, when were these invented? What dates were these invented in? So, the World Wide Web, Facebook, Twitter, obviously known now as X, YouTube, LinkedIn, Google. When was the first mobile phone sold?
Wow.
And when was the first smartphone sold? So I'm just again asking you who are on the call. And if you're watching this in recorded fashion, again, try it out, see how you do. I know a lot of people will be watching this as a recorded webinar, and to which you are, by the way, very welcome indeed. And there'll be some contact details at the end, by the way, if you want to reach out. But Phil,
Yeah, well, nothing in on Padlet there. I think the chunk in the middle will be all of a similar time frame. But let's say the World Wide Web. Shall we say 2000? No, 1998. Oh, right. Okay.
so Tim Berners-Lee, founder of the World Wide Web. It was originally created to meet the demand for automated information sharing between scientists and universities around the world. Facebook,
2012. Oh,
Mark Zuckerberg and his fellow Harvard students created an online program called FaceMash
yeah, that's
in
right.
2004.
It's a
Obviously,
good film.
tuned, what
Social network.
FaceMash?
No, Social Network.
Oh, I thought that there's a film I hadn't heard about. Okay. What about Twitter or X? Jack Dorsey. When did he introduce Twitter?
Probably 5 years later, 2008.
2006.
Uh,
YouTube. And this was started by former employees of PayPal.
yeah,
The idea that ordinary people would, enjoy sharing videos in their home. What do you
I
reckon
would
YouTube?
say I would say something like maybe 2005.
Get in.
Oof, on the money.
And LinkedIn. I know you use LinkedIn a lot, Phil,
Yeah,
for
I
your
find it very
business.
useful, particularly
Um,
for work.
when did you start becoming? When did you start
Oh, I've
becoming?
been on a long time.
Yeah,
So I think I've been on, I'm going to say 2011. Oh,
surprising, isn't it?
very
Surprising.
surprising. Yeah.
Yeah. And what about Google? Google's origins were back actually at the Stanford University in California. It was started out as a research project by PhD students, but when was that created?
I would say, yeah, not just looking at Padlet. It's a little bit quiet at the moment. You guys
Yeah.
can come and join us on this. It's not a quiz show for Phil and Dave here.
No,
I would
it's good.
say 2001.
Oh no, you're well out.
Ah,
Um, and now we're going to do the phones. First mobile phone sold, and when was the first smartphone? So let's go first. When do you think the first mobile phone was sold?
oh,
When was
that
your
must
first?
be um, eight, 1980.
Oh, you are so close.
All right, yeah.
The Nippon Telegraph, right, was the world's first cellular phone, and to be fair, Phil, that was launched in 1979.
Yeah.
The first commercially available phone went on sale in 83, and it cost $4,000.
Wow.
And what about the first smartphone?
I would say 2004.
Not bad, not bad. 2007.
Really?
There was, to be fair, what's called the IBM Simon Personal Communicator. So rather catchy
Indeed.
name, wasn't it? Back in 1992, but Apple introduced their iPhone in 2007 for the tidy sum of $499,
Wow.
which, as you know, that was a significant turning point in mobile technology.
Absolutely.
As you know, the device, we use it today, phone, iPod, iPad, internet
Yeah,
communicator in one. So
absolutely.
why am I droning on about that? Well, quite simply, apart from Google's launch in 96 and the Nippon Telegraph costing that fortune in 1983, the big takeaway here is that the digital revolution with the internet, smartphone, iPads, and supersonic technology all existed after that crusty piece of copyright legislation was passed in the Houses of Parliament in 1988. It was said at the time that the Copyright Designs and Patents Act would provide a foundation to the growth of sectors like film, music, and technology in the UK. However, no one, and I don't even think we could have possibly have envisaged how much the digital revolution would take on, and therefore how very quickly, how out of date that Copyright Designs and Patents Act would quickly become through the digital revolution. And that is why, to be fair, we are struggling with it right now because it is out of date. So, um, with the World Wide Web, with social media, and dare I say it, artificial intelligence, copyright has taken on a dangerous threat, which promises to get worse if we are not careful. And what I'm trying to do today is to show you how you can be careful. Because we live in a world of digital media, of websites and social media, where everyone is a publisher and everyone has a voice. And as a result, copyright has become this growing problem, not just for Rotary, but for organizations everywhere. I'm sure within your own businesses, if you're still working, or any organizations that you are involved with, you've got to be very careful because there are now these sophisticated bots, artificial intelligence, which trawl the World Wide Web, and they pick out anyone who has breached their copyright. So, hopefully, with me so far, let's get down to some nitty gritty. What is copyright? So, and if I'm going over old ground, for those who were in the first webinar, I do apologize, but I'm hoping let's get all on the same playing field. Let's all be level and we can move on. So, copyright is a branch of law known as intellectual property, and it comes from the same family as trademarks and patents. It gives those who create a piece of media, from a magazine article to a novel, a piece of music or a photograph, the power to protect their work from being copied by other people. So, and this agreed principle of copyright is worldwide. And that means that someone's time and effort has gone into creating an original piece of work which you cannot steal for your website or publication. So Phil, for example, I know Phil creates a number of media for Rotary. Well, actually, the person who owns the copyright is not Rotary, it's Mr. Philip Dyer. And if you want to use his artistry, then you need to get permission from him. Now, would Phil sue? Absolutely not. But technically, he is the person who owns the copyright. So, the law, and this is the most driest. This is the week old biscuit part. But the law in the UK, as I said at the start, is called the Copyright Designs and Patents Act. And the law states that that others cannot copy or use original material which you have created as if it was their own work without your permission. So copyright is all about deterring and punishing plagiarism. Now, there's no copyright in news or facts or information, but there is copyright in the way that news is selected, arranged, and presented to create an original work. And there are various themes to copyright, as I'm just putting up on the screen now. So as you can read it for yourself, but clearly there's both written material, broadcast, film, pictures, and even typographical arrangements of magazines. So if someone tried to rip off Rotary magazine, Great Britain and Ireland, the design of it without our permission, they would be breaching our copyright. Now, copyright lasts for a long time. A photographer, for example, owns copyright throughout their lifetime, and it then passes to their heirs for another 70 years. And material only moves on into the public domain after that period. And by the way, if you think the UK's copyright law is dated, in Europe, the copyright is covered by the Berne Convention, which was signed in 1886. 1886. So
Wow.
we were one of the signatories to that, and it's ratified by 181 countries, including the United States, although doubtless that'll be kicked out pretty soon. So I hope you're still with me at this stage and no one's fallen asleep. Here's the bottom line. If you create the work, you are the owner and you own the copyright. Simples. If it's not your work, then you need to get permission to use that material. And if you stick by that rule of thumb, if you want to use something which you don't own, then you need to get permission. And then to be fair, you won't go too far wrong. Um, so if you're going to put something on your Rotary website or on social media, if you've written it, if you've created it, all fine and dandy. But you just need to be very careful about using material which comes from another source. Now, if it is material that has been published on, let's say, for example, Rotary magazine, um, then that is absolutely fine. To be fair, you don't even need to contact me, but you're very welcome to contact me and say, Dave, can I use that picture on Rotary magazine? You can use that. But any material that's within the Rotary family, you can use. And we'll talk a little bit later about brand center. And I know in that bonus material, James Bolton is also going to talk about the brand center, which will help you to have materials which you can use safely without having to just go onto Google and find it there. So let's talk about words. Um, if you want to lift an article from a publication, then you need to obviously get permission and credit the author. So if you want, let's say for example, you've seen an article in Rotary magazine once again, because it's within the Rotary family, you can use it. You might, for your club publication on your website, or you want to put a link. In fact, links are fantastic. They're really, really good. That's a good way of getting around copyright because the author will be really happy for you to do that. But if you've got, say, you do a newsletter or something, or there's a district newsletter, and you want to take an article from, say, the Rotary magazine or anywhere else, then simply you just need to speak to the publisher. Now, the article on the left that you can see on the screen, that's about a campaign called Bikes for Africa. It's actually just winding up, but it's been really successful in Ireland, where the Rotary clubs in Ireland have been collecting these bikes. They have been refurbished by a prison in Ireland, and then they are sent off to Africa, primarily Gambia, where school children and working adults can use them to get to work, to get to school. So it's a life changer. The Irish Independent ran a really great feature about the project. I read it, and they'd spoken to Rotarians, they'd spoken to the prison governor, and thought that's a really good article. So I wanted to publish it in Rotary magazine. If I had lifted it without permission, I would have breached copyright. However, what I did here was I contacted the Irish Independent, and they were very happy for me to publish the story, and also they would allow us to use the pictures. And so we worked it out that way to our satisfaction. So yeah, if you want to use anything written, please do so. Just a note from Mary Nettle. Good morning, Mary. She says, would it be easy to use chat? Mary, I'm a revolutionary. I'm trying something for new. If you want to put it in the chat, please do so. Phil will pick up anything in the chat. But if you want to try Padlet, as I've just seen your message here, please fire away. And the QR code is at the bottom. I actually spoke at the Irish District Conference in Dunleary last September and used Padlet on stage where people could actually give me questions while I was talking, and it worked really, really well. So again, we're just trying something a little bit new and a little bit different. Okay, what have I done now? What have I done? Okay, now, images, however, remain the most hotly contested area of copyright law, and as we shall see shortly, it's the one giving the most concern. The bottom line is, in terms of this, is that the person taking the photograph owns the copyright. So let's say I'm out on the town with Phil. I give Phil my mobile phone to take a picture of me singing karaoke. And even though the image has been taken using, as you can see, I'm trying to show you my screen. There's my phone. Okay, even though the image has been taken using my phone, the fact that Phil's taken the picture, the copyright rests with Phil, the person who took it. Does that make sense? So the person who takes the picture owns the copyright. So the reason is that it was Phil who used his artistry, skill, and effort to capture that moment of singing magic. All right. And that's how it works. So whoever actually takes the image, they own the copyright. So while we're talking about it, let me introduce you to Naruto, who is a rare crested macaque monkey who lives in the Tangoka Reserve on the Indonesian island of Sulawesi. Now, British wildlife photographer David Slater was taking a picture of the monkeys when Naruto picked up David Slater's camera and took a selfie. This selfie. And this photograph went viral and sparked a 2-year legal battle when the animal charity PETA sued on behalf of the monkey. They're going nuts. Anyway, this is 2015, and what they wanted to do, PETA, is they wanted to seek financial control of the image for the benefit of Naruto. However, American judges came to their senses and they ruled that the monkey was ineligible to hold copyright over the image. But under a compromise, Mr. Slater has agreed to donate 25% of any future revenue from the images to charities dedicated to protecting crested macaques in Indonesia. The learning point here is that, strictly speaking, because Naruto had used his artistry, his technique to take that selfie, he actually technically owned the photograph. There you go. So, um, we live in a world where very different world from when the Berne Convention was signed. We live in the World Wide Web. We have social media, we have artificial intelligence, and as I said earlier, copyright has taken on a dangerous threat which promises to get worse. Um, and it's not just for Rotary, but it's general where we have these bots that can pick out um, areas where you have basically uh, used an image without permission. Um, and it's very easy, isn't it? All we do, if we want an image, we go onto Google, we right click on that image, save image as, and there you go. Phil, come on, honestly, time. How often do you do that for your own private delectation and delight?
Well, I think you. What's the benefit of these types of events, Dave? Is that you upskill us all. And 10 years ago, the right click save as was something that we all did.
Yeah,
But now we've got to be a little bit more, um, take a little bit more control and ownership of that situation, and go and select the picture a little bit more carefully. As our bonus material will allude to, the images that are on the Rotary Brand Centre are available for us all as Rotarians to use completely copyright free. But I think, 10 years ago, even I would have been right clicking, save as, stick it on a presentation like that image, and you just can't do it anymore. You just can't do
yeah.
it anymore.
See, the image I've taken here, I've taken from a safe website. So this image here of wish up for the TV listings has been taken there. And the reason I mention that is because did you know TV listings are copyright protected? Media organizations, so as an editor, I used to have to pay thousands of pounds each year to a listings organization in order to publish the TV listings in the newspaper every night. Um, Newspapers and media organizations have to pay a substantial fee for the privilege of publishing football fixtures because they are owned by another company called Dataco. And it may surprise you to learn that maps are copyright. In 2001, the Automobile Association was sued by the Mapmaker Ordnance Survey after the AA used Ordnance Survey maps as a basis for producing their own maps, which those sort of maps you can buy in garages if you haven't got a sat nav mind. Ordnance Survey was able to prove the plagiarism because, and this is bizarre, they put tiny mistakes on the maps, and these were reproduced on the AA
Mm.
material. So the case was settled out of court, and it cost a substantial sum of money. The AA had to pay substantial damages to Ordnance Survey as a result.
Mm.
Now, maps do have implications for Rotary clubs. Maybe you organise a fun run or a half marathon, and you want to produce a map of a route. I had a call from a Rotary Club in Berkshire asking about creating a map for their Santa run. Now, the easiest option is to create it freehand. Um, and there are some apps on the web which allow you to create free maps. But please don't just go and plonk a map off Ordnance Survey because you will be breaching copyright. It's really important that you remember that. One of the most obvious places when we talk about copyright is your club website. Now, these vary between those who use the Rotary Great Britain and Ireland template and there are many of you who use your own separately designed websites. Now, Chris Sweeney from I've just forgotten, Chris is in North Wales. Oh my gosh, near
Conway,
Connie. Connie is, yeah, Rotary Club of
Conway.
Connie in North Wales. Now, Chris runs looks after the website, and in fact, I sent him a message saying, "Have there been any updates?" He said, "No, we still have this." And as you can see on the screen, if you are on the official website and you are uploading a photograph, there will be a dialog box which will ask you about where you've got that image from. Now, you could just tick it, say yes, it's original, and ignore it. So there's no fail-safe guide, but it's basically just a reminder to you that you have used either an image that's been created by you or a member of your club, or it's from a reputable site which is open source. And I will come on to some of those sites fairly shortly. So that goes there. But those of you who don't use the Rotary GBNI websites and who have your own sites, maybe you've created part of a district-wide project or you've gone to a web designer, you need to bear this in mind because you won't have any checks and you need to be sure that any images that you or anyone else in the club that they are copyright free, that they own the copyright for it. So what I've tried to do in preparing this presentation, I've tried to think of as many eventualities where copyright might come into play for Rotary clubs. Now, this might sound a bit fringy, so stay with me for this, but do you organise a church service with the production of hymn sheets or the playing of music? And again, think about the originality test that someone's work, someone owns the copyright. Now, my knowledge of ecclesiastical copyright is not hot. You won't be surprised. So I headed for church last weekend, and after confession with a couple of Hail Marys, I spoke to a vicar friend about copyright. And he said to me that with hymns, only lyrics and music over 100 years old are not subject to copyright. All others, unless the creators have expressly said that people can use those works freely, are governed by copyright. So you cannot change the words to a hymn or a song without the author's permission. So if you're going to have a church service and you've got a hymn sheet, then most churches will have Christian copyright licensing, which enables you to do so. But you need to check it, both for hymn sheets and hymns generally. Um, and if you're holding an event in a church, please ask about Christian copyright licensing. So if you publish a hymn sheet and order a service, strictly speaking, you need to put a license number on the bottom of that sheet. And finally, any music that's performed in the church, or if a recording is played, you need a license for this. And churches should have a performing rights license, but it is worth checking. Now, last month I got an email from Birkenhead Rotary Club who are putting on a charity film night in May. And to do so, they have had to jump through many hoops. Um, so whether you are bringing your own DVD from home or buying or renting the film, you're going to need a Performing Rights Society license. Okay. The Birkenhead Rotary also discovered that if you are hosting a disco, a dance, or using background music, you need what's called a phonographic performance limited license. It's a bit of a garbled mouthful, isn't it? Commonly known as a PPL license. And that licenses the public performance of recorded music on behalf of record companies and performers in a public setting. So, Birkenhead Rotary are being charged a copyright fee for this film show of £87 by an organisation called Film Bank Media, who own the film. Birkenhead Rotary Club wrote to them, pointing out that this was a charity event with no personal gain. And the company, Film Bank Media, wrote back stating, quotes, "The studio obviously spends a lot of money developing and creating films. If you are using their product to generate revenue, then they expect to be compensated. Please note that there are no special rates for charities or not-for-profit organisations, as 75% of our customers fall into this category. As a result, Birkenhead Rotary Club are considering whether to go ahead with the film night." While we're talking about music, as mentioned earlier, copyright for music lasts for 70 years, and even as old as Cliff Richard. But what about sourcing music for a snazzy Rotary video, which you have shot, which you want to upload onto YouTube, social media, or website? Because unless you have copyright permission, YouTube will block the music. Now, Phil, this is an area of which you are well branched in, knowledgeable of. What do you do? Are you on mute at the moment, Phil?
The classic Zoom error. I do apologize. Um, yes, so if you're going to distribute your video on YouTube, which is, let's face it, the second largest search engine in the world, and enables you to transfer links rather than the actual video, which are very large files, then they will cut you down with a copyright strike. And there's two versions of the copyright strike. There's a straight to jail, you can't do it. So that would be a commercial song by a modern artist, you know, Queen, Kylie Minogue, The Killers, whoever, and you're just not allowed to do that. You're allowed to put a very, very small amount on. We're talking a few seconds. You couldn't use it as a backing track whatsoever. The second one would be a copyrighted track that you've bought, you used, but the copywriting of that track must be acknowledged within the YouTube video, either within the video or in the description. The disadvantage of that is that if you do come across some viral masterpiece, you've created a viral masterpiece, any monetization of that video would go to the copyright holder and not you. So the best way around it is to get a copyright free track. And as indicated on the screen here, we have Envato, Audio Jungle, other websites are available where you can buy for a very small amount of money a copyright free track, generally to have between 500,000 and a million impressions, and away you go. And that is the safest way around it. For probably about £1, you will get a track of 2 or 3 minutes long that you can utilize, and that's what I do. It's much better to be safe than sorry. So that's what I do, and I think these Envato. In fact, I'm not even so sure now if Audio Jungle is not owned by Envato. They all take over each other. Envato does have other media there, so you can get short videos and photographs on there as well. But yeah, great points. Better to be safe than sorry. Get a copyright-free track.
And I know, Phil, a couple of years ago, I was organising a district conference, and we wanted to put some walk-on music in the auditorium and walk-off music, and I came to you, and the sort of same theme applies, I guess, in that case too.
Yeah, you have to be careful as well with background music if you are recording it for the web. So, if you're in a conference and you've got your performing rights license, and you are brought, that's for live recordings, that's for live
Mm,
broadcast. If you are recording that and then putting it on YouTube, you could get a copyright strike because you are replaying a live event. Now, depending on the how upfront and centre, shall we say, the music is. So if it's background music, it would probably get past the algorithm on YouTube. But if you were replaying a tribute band, that might not. So you have to be very, very careful here, where you'd have to mute the track, and you can do that in YouTube, where it allows you to mute the track and put an alternate one if you want, or just leave it muted, and away you go. So it is a tricky field that we are dicing with this morning on this Saturday morning.
sure. Cost-wise, I know when I was um, advised by you, Phil, for the district conference that I was hosting, we were talking tracks of about five. It cost about £5 to £30 to actually buy the track to use as a backing track as a walk-on, walk-off for the speakers and various parts of there. So it's not a lot, but again, it's stuff that you might not have thought of. You might think, oh, I could just pick up my player and record and play it out over the speakers. You have to be
Yeah,
very much aware of that.
very
And
careful.
if in doubt, come and talk to us. Come talk to Phil. Come talk to
Absolutely.
myself. Very happy to help on those lines. So as we're finding out that the internet is a treasure trove of information and imagery, but Rotarians are finding out to their cost that assuming it is free and then publishing it on their club website or even social media can be expensive. Many photographers and their large archives are now using using artificial intelligence to protect their copyright. Some photo agencies are using bots such as PicScout, which is clever pieces of software which trawl the web looking for unauthorized use of imagery. And when they find a case, they generate an invoice. Using these technical means to detect copyright breaches is on the increase. For example, there is one publishing house for photographers called Pixie.com, which promises photographers that they will ensure no one breaches copyright. And in other instances, there are now third-party organizations like PicRights who act on behalf of photo agencies who are vigorously tracking down breaches even among individuals. Now, what PicRights is doing is not illegal, though you could argue the manner in which they do so doesn't leave the best of tastes. There are other agencies who have been active in this area of seeking copyright damages too. You may have heard of the term Getty letters from the agency Getty Images, based in the US, who have been sending out letters to small businesses and alike, demanding money for images which they say is theirs. In Great Britain and Ireland, Rotary has been caught up in a number of legal battles in recent years regarding breaches of copyright um, by our Rotary clubs and with their websites. In one case, a Scottish Rotary club published a picture on their website which they had downloaded off the internet. It wasn't the best of pictures. It wasn't picture of the year. I think it was a picture of a camera. It was so bland. It was like semolina. But this image belonged to someone else. It didn't matter the quality of it, it belonged to someone else. In this case, a German photographic agency who tracked them down and demanded a high fee in compensation. Now, this was eventually negotiated down to 500 euros, with the agreement that the image would be taken off that Rotary Club's website and the club would desist from any further breaches. So, all fine and dandy. What the Rotary Club failed to do was to remove the image from their archive. And that's really important to remember. If you have got a club website and you've got images on there, take them off the archive because this Rotary Club didn't do so. That bot returned. It found that image on the archive. And when the German lawyers returned a few months later, they demanded 6,000 euros as payment. Now, that was negotiated down, but it was up to the Rotary Club to pay. It does not fall on the shoulders of Rotary Great Britain and Ireland. You and your club are responsible. In a separate case, this cover of the magazine, Rotary magazine last year, we published this image as our front cover. It was supplied to us copyright free, but we have been in a battle with Agence France Presse about that image. So even we have had to be really careful about what images we use because it can cause a problem. So always check your sources because you need to make sure that they are secure.
Just a
So
couple of just about. Let me pause there, Dave.
sure, of course.
Couple of questions in on Padlet. We've got Adrian Fayers, DGE for London, who's asking about music and picture rounds in quizzes. What would be the copyright inference there? Well, I think we've probably covered pictures, but you just reinforce music there, maybe.
Yeah, so the music's I mean an interesting one because I mean we had one we were at Warwick this time last week, didn't we? And we had the quiz there.
Yeah.
Where I think Steve Martin was and yourself were playing various clips of music. You could argue, you could argue, strictly speaking, um, there is a breach of copyright. You could argue. Um, there are no paying customers for it, but it would yeah, it technically is. Now, is a music company going to pick up on that? No. But if it was an event where they were paying customers for, in particular, so it was a ticketed event at a disco or something like that, where people were paying money for, then quite rightly that would be so. So yeah, um, yeah, that would be the case. And
Yeah, there
yeah,
was similar another similar question in as well for playing bits of music for people to name in a quiz. My slight reinforcement of that, and I agree with you totally there, is that if it's a public venue like Warwick University was, or a public house, or a a community centre, they are likely to have a performing rights license.
yeah,
The live broadcast of that music, even in extract, is perfectly acceptable. Where becomes a little bit more tricky is that re-record of it. If you are
yeah,
recording the quiz and intending to put the quiz on YouTube or Vimeo or another commercial search video library, then you are likely to come into more problems. However, extracted tracks are allowed. There is a sort of a 15, 20 seconds of an extracted track is allowed. So just watch that. Sorry to step in there, Dave.
no, no, it's good. No, and Adrian, it was good. I saw your wife Shirley last weekend in Warwick, so it was good to chat there. And I hope and good luck for your year in London next year. Martin Wood from Colchester, Phil, has asked about what are you doing about? So what about doing a screenshot of Google Maps? So we said earlier that maps are
Yeah,
copyright. And that's an interesting one because once again, technically, if you're taking it off Google without their permission, it's a copyright breach. Now, Google are less like they're not litigious, so if you were to use it, you're not going to get. I don't think you'll get done for it. But yeah, strictly speaking, it's Google's permission. It's good. There's it's their artwork, so they do own that. Um, and so I would be very careful about it's the audience and how you use it is a key element there of what you do. But yeah, it strictly speaking would be a breach of copyright, unfortunately. Um, yeah. So again, let's just we've got a pause, so let's have a look through this.
just as you're reading that one there, just going back to them maps as well. I
Yeah,
know what David is saying there. He wants to put a screenshot on and draw the route on top of it. But
yeah,
remember, on Google, you can certainly put the link in to that particular map. So
mm,
if you want a particular a map indicated, a geography indicated,
yeah,
you can pick up the link, right click, get a link for this location, and then post that. And then all you're doing is redistributing a link to the
yeah.
actual map. So that would be a way around that.
No, no, Phil. I should have thought of that. Exactly right. So I mentioned earlier about links. Any link you send, they're not going to be. They'll be joyous because against that's what they want you to do. So sharing links, but yeah, rather than creating an overlay, that would work out. Um, we've got one here. We have pictures of people in the news as a table round in a charity quiz. These are taken from the internet. Is this okay? I'm not quite sure where that question, how that works. So we have pictures of people in the news as a table round in the charity quiz. These are taken from the internet. So again, who took in answer to that question, maybe you just want to come back with clarification. Who took the picture? So if it's so was it one of your club members who's put that picture of that charity quiz on the website? So long as you've got permission from them, no problem at all. If it was a commercial photographer who's taken that picture, then you would need to get permission. One would suggest something like that would be you would be fine so long as you just got permission from the author.
Yeah.
So um,
So the other one there might just throw in a little bit of additional into that one. So technically,
yeah.
you're absolutely right, Dave. It's copyright. If you've taken a picture of I'm just trying to think, Johnny Bairstow, the cricketer, Yorkshire cricketer,
Hmm.
for want of a better description, and you were using that in a news round, in a quiz, who is this? Then you need permission to use that
Oh,
photograph.
so yeah, no, no, I've just read that right. So I was thinking, I hadn't realised that. So
Yeah.
okay, so yeah, so use
So yeah,
yeah,
the only time when you're allowed to use a picture, and this
mm,
is where I'm going to throw a question back to you, Dave, is I could use a picture of Johnny Bairstow uh, if I was writing editorial comments about him. So if I was referring to him as the Yorkshire cricketer, that I could use that photograph. Is that not
yeah.
correct?
Yeah, no, I mean, so I do a quiz with my university students, and we use an app called Kahoot. So we're talking this one about Padlet, and on Kahoot, for example, which is a great interactive quiz which you can use online, you can go onto a photo directory. So if you wanted to do a question about David Bairstow, the England cricketer, or about Donald Trump, or about Keir Starmer, or something about the Bondi Beach in Australia, I could go on to that. They would have a photographic library to use that from. So that would be absolutely fine. The thing about, suppose it's all about the setting, really. We said earlier, Phil, about last week we're at the University of Warwick for this Rotary event. It's a closed forum, and is there going to be a breach of copyright? Is it going to be technically found out? Is it going to be found out? No. So yeah, for a small little quiz like that, not a problem. Going back to my university. Admittedly, we are covered by education copyright. I use a lot of right-click images, to be fair, on my stuff. So I do a copyright presentation. I don't use this one. I use, and we'll come to an image soon about Princess Diana. Now, I'm not showing you the image of Princess Diana because it's copyright, but in my lectures, I'll do it because it's in a very closed environment and it's not going to go out. But because this is going out as a recording, I've got to be very careful about what images I choose to use today. So that's the reason for that. I think there was a message from Bob in Saltburn as well. And Bob was saying here, perhaps you'll cover it later, but does social media such as Facebook present a risk of infringement given it's an easy share option? Um, it does, Bob, to be fair, and I'm going to address that fairly shortly using a charity example. But you've got to, when you share something, you're sharing it in good faith, and a bit like sharing links, you would be okay. But Facebook is not immune from the potentials of copyright breaches. So I will address that very shortly. What I've got from Mark from West Fife. Mark, good morning. I hope all is well in Scotland. In our calendar posted on our website, we often show a screenshot from the speaker's website. I'm assuming we need their permission to do this. However, if they give their permission, but in fact they have used it from elsewhere without permission, where do we stand? So that's a good question. You're exactly right, Mark, that if you've got a speaker, let's say you've for your calendar or you are promoting an event. Phil, we did together talks a few years ago, didn't we? And we would take pictures of various guests from all over the world. Well, we would go to them for permission for the photograph, but if they had the photograph taken by a professional photographer, we needed to ensure that they in turn had the permission too for that photograph. So in this case here, Mark, absolutely you're right. You would need to make sure that the photograph has full permission. It sounds a bit pedantic, but that's the law, and you just need to make sure that's the case. Does that make sense, Phil? Does that come out? Did that come
Yeah,
out?
yeah, yeah. I just wondered if you wanted to reinforce that point. Do you remember the Aquabox situation about 2 years ago, where there was a reshared picture?
Yeah, I'm going to come on to that. I'm going to come on to
All
that
right.
in a
So,
second.
so
Yeah.
perhaps that question that who raised that question there?
So previously Bob was talking about it in terms of sharing options,
Yeah.
and that was Mark from West Five talking
Right. So,
about.
Martin, we cover that in a few minutes' time with a reshare, and that might reinforce that point there.
Okay, let me just move on. I see there's one
Yeah.
here, risk assessment and ownership, and I'll come on to that shortly. But let me just move on just quickly about what happens if you get a copyright notice. First thing, Mr. Mannering, don't panic. It can be sorted out. Um, the first thing to do is look at what you've got and to make sure that you can contact them and to have a discussion about them. Equally, um, contact Rotary Great Britain and Ireland in the first instance for advice. I know some clubs have done that and have contacted me and James and Phil about it. So if you do get a notice like that, come and speak to us and we can obviously give you some advice about it. Um, in and yeah, that's probably the best approach. You are welcome to enter into dialogue with the person who sent you the notice and try to negotiate down. But if you're unsure, please come and talk to us here. What I would say is you might think this is all underhand by the photographers with cries of "How dare they? This is the latest PPI scandal." It's not. Clearly, photographers are using these digital tools to vigorously ensure that their copyright is not abused, and what they're doing is within the law. As I say, perhaps the way that they're doing it is not quite nice, but you just need to bear that in mind. Um, the best way of creating images on the safely on the internet and generally is to take your own. Um, there's nothing better than originally sourced images. Phil, where and when was this taken?
That was in Llandudno at the District 1285 conference. I would say, well, I noticed the boyish good looks haven't diminished, but I would say that's about 5 years ago, maybe even 6 years ago.
And that's a guy called Evan Burrell,
Yeah,
who's an
yeah,
Australian Rotarian.
yeah.
Uh,
Who had a catch line that not all superheroes wear capes.
Very good.
So that was his
Um,
catch line.
so so there are loads of resources available through for you to use, photographic wise, and also to help you with the images. There's things like the Rotary shop. There's a Tough shop where you can get Rotary signage to make the dullest of images look engaging. Phil, do you want to quickly talk about the Tough shop?
Yeah, good one actually. And I should have had my Tough Shop T-shirt on today, but I haven't. What we've got is on the Tough Shop. We've got these boards that you can order. That's the wrong way around. That is the correct way around. So these boards are orderable from the Tough Shop. I will put a link on the screen or in the next few minutes. And these just take away or add to your photographs. And you can get Rotary Master Brands, End Polio Now. You get the areas of focus. You can get Unite for Good, which is our new president's message for 2025-26. Lots of other good things there. Yeah, the master brand. I'm just trying to think. People of Action, Ryla, Youth Study Exchange, loads of boards, and they just add that extra degree of maybe excitement, a bit of another dimension to a photograph, and it make it clearly that it is a rotary photograph and not one with the grab and grin check in play. So yeah, the Tough Shop. If you've all seen the Rotary magazine this month, which I have to say, and not because of present company, is phenomenal. Is phenomenal. This particular issue. There is 24 pages of public image editorial and comments in there, but also the magazine is fantastic. Tough Shop have actually got an advertisement in there to go and have a look. But if you get any problems or you want to order thousands of pounds worth of material, then come back and speak to me directly, and I will sort something out for you. Yes, a great one there, Dave. Thank you very much.
No, that's fine. And if you're watching a recording of this, the magazine we're talking about is the April 2025 edition of Rotary Magazine, where there's the advert for the Tough Shop. And Phil, just for the sake of the recording, do you want to give I know you're going to put it on the link, but can you just read out the link? Is it an easy link for the Tough
It
Shop?
is not, but I will get you it in the next couple of seconds.
Okay, we'll come back to it. We'll come back to it because what I thought I'd do actually, where can you find good materials? And again, Phil, you may use some of these, so please chime in as we go through. So yeah, there are a number of sites where you can get secure copyright-free images. Um, Creative Commons is, I'm sure many of you will have heard of Creative Commons. It's a global not-for-profit organization that provides free standardized licenses that creators can use where they grant permission for others to use their work legally and flexibly. And it's one of the most widely used frameworks for sourcing copyright free and copyright permissive content, including images, text, audio, and video. So it's worthwhile looking at that. There are six. types of Creative Commons licenses which you can use. Do you use Creative Commons much, Phil, at all?
Occasionally, yes. And I'll tell you when I do use it. I use it for famous people and
Right,
often famous buildings. So,
right.
if you do a Google search, you can do a Creative Commons search. So you go Google images, search your images. So you might put Windsor Castle. And if you click on the type of license, Creative Commons, it will come up with a very limited, I have to say, and often not as good a quality as you would like, picture of Windsor Castle, which has got Creative Commons.
Right.
And that's sometimes useful. So certainly when I was doing the lighting up polio, we lit up buildings. I would use it before and after, and certainly for famous people, there'll be an image because the famous people get caught with usually Getty or with who is the other one that's Shutterstock, and
Yeah.
they charge a fortune for people.
Mm.
A public person could be a couple of £100 for the photograph. So if you use a Creative Commons, that's usually a way around it.
Yeah. And again, for those quizzes we said earlier, you might be able to get pictures here rather than having to do a right click on Google. Um, there are a number of websites which that host Creative Commons licensed images. I've just listed a few here for you. So Flickr, for example, um, frequently used for academic blogs, digital humanities projects. You can use their Wikimedia Commons. Has a lot of good journalistic articles, has a lot of historical, educational and editorial images. Um, Europeana, again, a well-respected site that you could use. Google Images with license filters. So here, if you go onto there, go to Tools, Usage Rights, and then if you filter the Creative Commons licenses, you can look at that. But always here, verify the actual license on the source before you using it, and you need to make sure that there may be conditions you may be able to, you can use images from these sites, but there will be a permission that you may have to sign or a way that you use the image in the medium that you choose. You may well need to have to give a credit or whatever they need to do to satisfy that license. And CC Search, which is now integrated within Openverse, this is a dedicated search engine that aggregates the Creative Commons licensed images from multiple platforms. It's quite a really good platform for you to use. So as I said, be careful. Be careful with honouring the terms and conditions. I've got a legal friend of mine who was contacted by people who had used a Creative Commons photo, but they'd neglected to comply with one of the conditions, which was to give the photographer a byline. That omission cost them £300. So you've just got to just do it right. Free images, but you must honor the requirements of that license. There are also a few other sites for you to consider. I've just sort of done a quick sort of brainstorm here. Phil, I don't know if there's anything I've missed out as you read through that list as I go through them, but chime in at the end, please. Unsplash I use quite a lot there. Frequently used by media outlets and digital marketeers for high quality editorial images. Pexels, very popular among web developers and bloggers for lifestyle and technology photos. There's Pixabay, which is commonly used for content creators for both images and vector graphics. Free Images, which is suitable for editorial and illustrative um, uh, content. StockSnap, not used it before, but apparently goes well for branding and social media. Burst by Shopify, a new one on me as well, but that's been tailored, it says here, for entrepreneurs building e-commerce websites and marketing content. Gratisography, that's known for its quirky and creative photographs, and it's ideal for advertising and creative industries. Reshot is useful for unique images not available on some of the more generic platforms. And finally, PicJumbo, which is frequently used in presentations and slide decks for corporate settings. But cautionary note, be careful. Be careful when you use the websites. Check the license conditions when because attribution may be required. Phil, anything to add at all?
No, I think you've covered a load there, some that I've not come across myself before, but certainly the four top ones, Unsplash Pixels, Pixabay, and Free Images, I have used and found them to be, yeah, pretty good. And content does change. Just talking about paid for images, and the one that I find to be one of the most cost effective is Adobe Stock. And you don't have to pre-buy or anything there, and a photograph there in a maybe not the highest quality works out about £2. So, for example, the image behind me and Dave today, that sort of filmed photographic strip, if you like that image, um, you would be able to get that. I think it's £2.39. That's what it costs for one image. Now, that's not a lot if you're going to use that as the basis of a campaign for an event, just to get it right. So it can be quite small costs to get the right information in place. But well done, Dave. Yeah, loads of good ones there. Thank you.
Yeah, and I'd say at Rotary for the magazine, we use iStock and Shutterstock for our images there. We pay licenses for those. So yeah, you can buy images if you want to, but again, it's about its cost effectiveness. Another good place to source copyright material um, is the brand center. Phil, I know we've got this extra material, but do you want to sort of do you want to whet people's appetite about this?
Certainly, if you want to go to a resource that's free, absolutely free, not within a Rotary login. If you've got an internet connection and a web browser you can get on, just type into Google um, Rotary Brand Centre, or in red as is displayed on the screen, brandcentre.rotary.org, spelt the American way. We are an American organisation, and there is heaps and heaps of material on there. It's going to be talked about by James Bolton in the YouTube version of this video, but there's 191 videos, over 4,000 photographs. There is a lot of stuff on there. A lot of stuff. It's not just the logo, the colours, and the fonts. There is lots and lots of material there, all geared for humanitarian service, whether locally in your local communities or further afield. It is a little bit American centric, but it is getting better. And you can filter by European photographs as well. So give it a try. If you've not been on the Brand Centre, then it is a wet Sunday afternoon well spent. He's browsing the Brand Centre, potentially not this weekend because of the good weather. But thank you, Dave, for that.
No, it's good, and I've used it a number of times for creating posters for my Rotary Club, images there, people of action stuff. Look, there's videos. Again, you're thinking about for your club, maybe social media. You want a good video to promote Rotary Day or End Polio Now around World Polio Day. There's materials on there which you can use. So yeah, that's worth thinking about. I just gonna say another copyright source. Let me just check my slides here. Oh yeah, so just coming on here. So for Rotary Digital, um, we produce that using Canva. And we again, that is a very easy device to use. I'm pretty sure quite a few of you will be using Canva anyway. It's fairly intuitive as a medium. You can pay an upgrade, about 10 a month, and there is a good stock of library materials there, picture materials that you can use. It it doesn't cost a lot to stay legal, if I'm honest with you. So that's pretty good. I'm just looking here on some more questions I've got, Phil, on the on the line on our sorry on Padlet here.
Yeah,
Um, do we need written permission to use images? Yeah, the question there, go to the author, the originator, to get permission. And do you know what? 9 times out of 10, they'll say, "Yeah, thank you very much. Give me a picture credit. Put a link to my website." So more often than not, they'll be very happy to do so. Um, Jenny from Takeley Rotary. Good morning, Jenny. Can you publish this information for us on the RGBI website? Um, there is a piece about copyright which is in the April issue of Rotary magazine. And Phil, rather than publish this on the website, where will people be able to find this video after its recording?
So this video will be held on the Rotary Great Britain and Ireland YouTube channel, but there will be links in the next um, public image newsletter, which goes out on about the 15th of May. In fact, yeah, we won't get the recording out for the 15th of April. So 15th of May. It will also go in service news, and I'm certain there will be a very small but highly prominent article in Rotary Digital coming up about this particular webinar, and the link will be there too.
Thank you very much. That's great, Phil. Carol from Rotary Elgin, I'm coming to you very soon, so hold on to that question that you've got there. And also, yeah, someone on a very similar theme about AI and copyright. Hold your horses. I'm coming on to it. So, I wanted to talk on social media. This really picks up on I think it was Bob from Saltburn Rotary who was talking about does social media such as Facebook present a risk of infringement given its easy share options? And let me just talk about that now. Um, let's be blunt. We share photos and posts without much thought about their origins, and we create our own posts, occasionally lifting material from elsewhere. Um, I'm organising a big Rotary event on Easter Monday. It's a race, and I wanted to. It's a. We've got medals. We've had some medals actually been manufactured in Poland, and I asked the people in Poland to send me a video of the medals being manufactured, and I've posted it on this morning. So that's the way of getting around it. You go to the sources, get hold of it. A very famous athlete called Roger Black. Many of you may remember Back and Beyond. He's from where I'm a Rotarian on the south coast. I got him to do a thank you to come and support Gosport Rotary. So it's about getting original material which you can then put onto social media and share. So the more original material that you can create, again, you avoid any possible instances of copyright. So, but if you are going to take images from elsewhere, you need to be very careful about their provenance. Where have they come from in the first place? Now, in a sinister turn of events, and this is the case that Phil was alluding to a few moments ago, I got involved in a case where a Rotary Club was picked up for a copyright breach for something it posted not on its web page but on its Facebook page. So what happened here was that the charity, and it is a well-known charity, Phil let it slip quite quietly there, but I'll avoid saying it too much. But well known to many Rotarians, had posted on its Facebook page a story about its work in Ukraine supporting refugees. To accompany that social media post, the charity took an image from the CNN News website of the devastation in Ukraine and posted it with this story. And you could say, well, it's fair play, it's a humanitarian thing. Why not? Unfortunately, it was a copyright breach because they had used the image from CNN without permission. Now, the irony is that the charity which made the original post has never been picked up for the breach. Hence why I'm being a little bit coy about the source. However, it was the Rotary Club, not the charity, which got done for copyright because it had shared the charity's post on its Facebook page in good faith. And 3 months later, that breach was picked up and they received an email highlighting the breach and demanding £500 for the cost of the image. It was random. And it doesn't, I'm still am very suspicious about how this happened. Now, I managed to, in good United Nations style, negotiate them down to £100. And say that it was a good faith error. And look what we're doing. So you need to be very careful about, as Bob was saying on his questionnaire, you need to be very careful about what you do share on your Facebook page because if you're not sure of where it's come from, then don't use it. And I know we personally, I know in a Rotary Club you wouldn't use those funny gifs or whatever, but you need to be very careful about them because you don't own the copyright for them. So all I'd say is that don't get anxious about it. Just play it safe. That's all I'm saying to you. Don't throw because what's the value? What are you trying to gain by it? Not very much. So wherever possible, please try and gain original content. Um, Social media provides all sorts of issues. Again, I'm just going to continue on Bob's point here, where on his question. Remember, the Copyright Design and Patents Act was written in 1988, before the internet was born, and while the likes of Mark Zuckerberg was a nerdy student at high school in New Hampshire before heading to Harvard University, where in 2004, with some fellow students, they launched FaceMash. I asked another lawyer friend of mine about who specializes in media law about the issue of images on the internet and copyright breaches. And he admitted that his company is dealing with publishers who have had picture agencies and third-party agencies pursue them for using images without permission. And he said this. Unfortunately, it is a real risk when using photos without permission, as the claims are usually next to impossible to resist and often result in the payment of inflated fees. Therefore, he added, if people reproduce images on social media and do not own the copyright or do not have a license to use them, they are infringing copyright and they will be open to claims for breach of copyright. That's it, pure and simple. So what he is saying is that images on social media platforms such as Facebook, X, and Instagram, you can't just lift an image and publish it without the owner's consent. It doesn't matter what privacy settings you have or however many followers you have. In their eyes and in the eyes of the law, it is theft. Now, you may say some newspapers ignore this and they publish freely, and they do. But they have the legal muscle to fight any copyright breach, and also they have the money behind them. Newspapers may pay the fee because they make their money through advertising and newspaper sales, and they may consider it an investment to set against increased sales or digital hits on their website, which brings in advertising revenue to pay that legal fee. But for Rotary, we cannot accept such a gamble. So apologies for sounding like a parrot, but if you do not own the copyright, then you need to get consent, credit the copyright owners, and possibly pay for the use. In truth, if you see a story on a friendly Facebook page about a Rotary event, common sense would suggest that to contact the Facebook page owner and ask them for more details and consent to use their words and images is rather nebulous. But because they will just be grateful for the coverage. But if you're going outside that brief, then you need to be careful. I thought I'd very quickly list the penalties for breach of copyright. As we know from what Rotary is facing, the penalties can be severe. In terms of defences, they are not easy to come by. The breach is clear and it's hard to defend the indefensible. So just be careful with that. As I said earlier, all the photographers are trying to do is to protect their value. They are earning a living, trying to earn a living, and they want to make sure their copyright is not abused. I appreciate we talk mostly about images, but we could talk about a whole wealth of things from maps to sculptures to paintings, whatever. Copyright, after all, is intellectual property, which has been originally created and is of value. For freelance photographers, protecting their rights of an image is protecting their livelihood. And if a photograph is copied online without permission or payment, it can drastically affect their income. Now, I cannot show you this image because it is copyright. In fact, Phil, just to recap, we tried to get hold of this image a few years ago, didn't we? And it was going to cost us. You're on mute again, Mr. Phil.
Yes, yes. I remember this one, yeah. It was going to cost a lot of money. and we didn't progress with it.
No. So again, I don't know how many of you watched The Crown on Netflix. Series 5 was all about the trials and tribulations of Prince Charles and Princess Diana. And at the time in 1997, there was this grainy image that appeared on the front page of the Sunday Mirror showing Diana, Princess of Wales, kissing Dodi Al Fayed on his father's yacht in the Mediterranean. As I say, I'd love to show you the image, but for fear of breaching copyright with the presentation, I daren't. The reason is that the Sunday Mirror bought the image, and with syndication fees, they got 10 million for it. So what I'm trying to show here is that copyright is all about protecting value, and that lasts for a 70-year period. I am almost there, by the way. There were a couple of questions on the Padlet, and by the way, we'll take some questions at the end if you're still with us and you haven't fallen asleep yet. It's 10 to 11, by the way. Um, so where we talked about artificial intelligence, um, the law is actually unclear. Um, in 2016, a group of museums in the Netherlands unveiled a portrait called The Next Rembrandt, which was an artwork generated by a computer which had analysed thousands of works by the 17th century Dutch artist Rembrandt van Rijn, um, and a short novel which was created by a Japanese computer program in 2016 reached the second round of a National Literary Prize. So there's lots of stuff going on around artificial intelligence, and where does it come into play? Well, a lot of the images I've used on this presentation have either been sourced from copyright-free um, uh, places, copyright-free websites, or I've used artificial intelligence to design them for me. Um, so copyright, if you use artificial intelligence to create an image, you own the copyright for that. Okay. Um, An article from November 23 says it's a legal precedent that underscores the collaborative nature of AI's creative output. This approach acknowledges the human role in developing the AI systems and sets the stage for defining ownership. So it says the person responsible for the AI's operation, the person responsible for putting the commands into the AI dialogue box, whether it's Chat, GPT, or whatever, they are deemed to be the author. So you could, if you wanted to, and you've got an upgraded version of ChatGPT, you could create an image there, and that will be AI protected. So I'm just going back to the question on here. Have I got it still? Um, no, I haven't. So I hope that question about AI has been answered helpfully there. Please let me know. Just for a bit of fun, this is what I created on AI. I said to AI, create an image of Rotarian Dave King from Gosport running along the coast. And this is what they created. It looks nothing like me. I'm far more handsome than that beast. Um, so I even put a little picture of myself online. But apart from the receding hairline, it's nothing. And probably my tummy's a little bit bigger than that. Anyway, the point I make is that you can use AI to create images. They are copyright free. I appreciate the quality may not always be good, but it's a workaround. If you don't have the original picture, use ChatGPT. Um, Interestingly, yeah. So have I got this? Oh yeah. So yeah, it's free and easy to use, and give it a whirl. So takeaways. What should I do next? Um, I would say within your club, have a discussion about it. Um, and talk about copyright. If you want me to talk to your club directly about copyright, I'm happy to do that. If it's in an area where I'm close to, I'll come to your club to talk about it, or I can do it online with them. But it's well worth your while doing an audit of your website. Just checking through that any images that you've used on there, if they are in a directory, to delete them. if they are not your copyright. Okay, so remove any pictures from your archive that you do not own. Um, and just try to adopt a strategy about how you do things in the future. It doesn't need a long document. It's just an agreed protocol that this is what we should do in terms of images or anything copyright that you tend to use. Um, and yeah, just have a strategy where you are protected from copyright. But let everyone know within your club about what they need to do and what they don't want to do. S- And although we've spoken much about images, think you can think beyond that. Think about maps, or if you've got an event. Phil was talking earlier about music. Just be very careful about it. And if you're unsure, ask. And if you, the easiest route one, apart from original content, is go to the owner of that content and say, "Can I use it?" And like I showed you that illustration from the Irish Independent, they're more than happy for you to use it, copyright free. And if in doubt, leave it out. Just to say that it's the elephant in the room is that there are these bots trawling the World Wide Web like something out of a George Orwell novel, looking to detect copyright breaches, and where will they go next? We cannot know. But all I can say is just be aware of what's going on, and hopefully I've answered a few questions there, and we're happy to take a few more. But it's important that we all clean up our act and make sure that we are copyright safe. Mr. Phil, that is me done.
Brilliant, brilliant, Dave. Thanks very much for your time this morning. I'm just gonna just check that Padlet screen to see if there is any further questions on there. You'll notice, guys, that I've bobbed a link to the Tough Shop there. There's an image there, and I also pushed that out in I pushed that out in the chat. Back to you all. I think we've had a good session this morning, and I think what you've got here, guys, is a great resource going forward. Not only have you spent some time on a Saturday morning here, but this is one of them. Box set editions that you can keep revisiting and just upskill yourselves because it's such a massive subject. And like you say, please reach out to your SAT team members, to me directly, and to Dave. We're here to help. The last thing we want is you getting a problem down the line because it is a problem and you will have to deal with it head on. Um, and like you say, we can negotiate down on various different elements for you, but generally we can't get it to go away. If there's a problem there and you've done something wrong, naivety is no defence, and we can negotiate and we can lobby on your behalves, but we can't make it go away. So, as Dave says, the last takeaway there was, if in doubt, leave it out. Um, there isn't
Phil,
anything.
there's a couple of questions that come up, by the way.
Oh,
Just now picking them up. So I've just quickly gone to onto the uh, Zoom link, and David Lister's come up with one. So, David, good morning to you. Thank you very much for the question. He says, when permission is obtained for use of copyright protected material, is it time limited? For example, if we get permission for one district conference,
brilliant.
could this apply for next year's district conference also? Um, that's again, David, that's down to the terms that you agree with the originator. So, for example, you may say for this and future conferences, or you need to do it on a step-by-step basis.
Yeah,
Um,
so
uh,
just coming back on that one point,
yeah,
a photographer in Liverpool who does a beautiful shot of the Liver building lit up purple for Empoleon Now. Now, it wasn't taken for Empoleon Now, but it is purple. And he allowed me to use that for one time only about three
right.
years ago. He goes, no problem, Phil, one time only, full accreditation, link here, link here, link here, once only.
Okay,
Social media, he knows. So if he finds it again, reshares are fine, but
yeah.
it was one original post.
Yeah, and that's what I mean when we go back to Creative Commons and those licenses that on the free shares, be aware there may be a one-time share on it. There may be all sorts of conditions that you need to tie up. So just read with the paperwork carefully. Jim in Aberdeen, St. Macar, thank you very much for the kind comment. Really useful presentation, guys. Thank you very much. Appreciate that. I hope it's sunny in Bonnie, Scotland. Neville in Cardiff Bay. God, is that Steve Jenkins or Alison Sutherland's club down there in South Wales? Anyway, good
Steve
morning, Neville.
Jenkins down there.
Yeah. Good morning, Neville. He says you mentioned setting up a protocol, Dave. Do you have a basic outline to use? I don't have one. It's perhaps maybe you need to think about it. I don't think it needs to be something that's a big document, but it's almost like an agreement that whoever perhaps is in charge of public image, they take on the role of just copyright monitoring, so that they make sure that maybe on a yearly basis that they remind whoever's uploading on the club website or the club social media page is aware of their obligations around copyright. So I don't think it needs a long sort of risk assessment form, but that's important. And on that point, there's also not got the name of the person who asked the question, but it's a good one all the same. And they say, ownership, copyright of risk assessment documentation, will this be covered? And the person says, I brought up that dynamic risk assessment needs to be added to the Rotary GB&I guidelines and has been assured that this will happen. Now, I don't know anything about that, to be fair. Phil, I'm looking at you unless
Just
you.
just go through that point again. I missed the crux there.
No, so the person is asking about a dynamic risk assessment which needs to be added to Rotary GB&I guidelines. So he's saying about whether copyright maybe be included in that risk assessment. That's what I'm reading from that.
No, but I'll take up a note on that and come back. What I would say is, who's that come from?
It's no name. If you want to put your name into the either the chat or onto the Padlet, then we can get back to you on that one. So that again, that's the heading is risk assessment and ownership there. You got it there?
Yeah, I haven't got that, but I've noticed that Mark from West Five's come back again about general permissions when you do youth competitions. So two things there, Mark, is
Yeah.
I don't think that's a bad point. However, a reinforcement at a local level would be what I would be doing. So as you approach the building, um, as you approach the registration area, a notice is up saying that photography, videography is being taken and will be used for marketing and all other purposes in the future. And that gets you around that situation. And also, it allows the person who has got umbrage with a photograph advising you rather than you seeking them out, which is almost impossible. So,
Yeah, just to chip in with that. So, Mark, that's actually not copyright. That's about privacy, which is a different subject, and which is one which I'm very familiar with. And so, you are, although Rotary International has all these. I mean, if you work for Rotary International and you take photographs over in America, there's all sorts of sign-off sheets that strictly have to be filled in there. In the general law of this land, you do not need permission to take pictures in public. You can't take pictures of Philly wearing his mankini in his back garden because that will be clearly not only a matter of taste but also a matter of breaching his privacy. When it comes to children, and a child in the law is defined as someone under the age of 16 in terms of ethics. In law, it's 18, but in ethics, it's 16. But I think for our benchmark, it should be 18. You should, out of courtesy, for ethical courtesy, you should ask permission for use of that. And Phil's exactly right that if you are at an event where there are children, and Mark, you're talking about having a youth competition, it's worthwhile putting that up. It's understandable why there are these conditions. As a newspaper editor, we used to publish first day at school pictures, a big supplement in our newspaper, and we would send a photographer to the schools to take the pictures. And we obviously published them widely in our paper, but there were certain children who did not appear in those pictures, and the reason is because they come from families where maybe is a tough family setup. Maybe the mother's had been through a relationship, has had to move away, and she does not want a former partner to know where that child is, and so for the protection of that child they don't want the photograph published widely. So that's in a newspaper sense. In a Rotary sense, there may be someone who's turned up to a Rotary event and for the very same reason they want to participate, but they do not want their child to be publicised because there may be a very good reason why. So certainly when we're dealing with youth competitions, there needs to be either a sign on sheet or a sign off sheet in terms of whether images can be used there. In big public events, and we're still within privacy, this is not copyright. There's something that's called informed consent. So, if Phil buys a ticket to a concert or to a sporting event, you will see on the back of the ticket that you, by purchasing that ticket, have agreed to the terms of that ticket, which means that a photograph can be taken of you in that public setting. But that's how it works. So, yeah, finally, Mark, I would say make sure you get permission.
There is just one last question there about stock assets within platforms
Yeah,
from Pretty at Henless.
yeah,
And she's talking about assets within Canva, for example. And the beauty about Canva is that they're copyright free. They're giving you that asset, you're embellishing that asset and creating something else from it. And there are rules, aren't there, Dave, on
yeah.
if you adjust an image. If you take an image and adjust more than, is it 60% of it?
Yeah, yeah, I think you're right about that. Yeah,
60% of it becomes your copyright.
yeah.
In Canva, you're adding a lot of creative. So,
Mm.
for example, we've got the image behind us. This is a great image provided by Rotary Great Britain and Ireland. But if I adjust that image by adding my own creative to it, at events, the time of the date and so, another photograph, and adjusting it by more than 60%, that becomes my copyright. Are you of that opinion, Dave, or have I put
Yeah,
you off?
no, no, no. It is. It's your. You've created it. It's your work. You own the copyright for it.
Yeah. She also goes on about Adobe Creative. Yeah. A bit like you get stock photographs in PowerPoint and in Word now. They're all copyright free. That you can use them very safely. No problem whatsoever. Most people, particularly Adobe, if they're going to charge you, you'll know about it fairly quickly.
That risk assessment question, Phil, that came from Barbara Broadbelt, in District 1030. I'm trying to think
Oh
where
yeah,
that
I
was.
know Barbara. I'll reach out to her separately.
Okay. And the question about the risk assessment, no, sorry, not the risk assessment, about the dynamic rotary risk assessment question. That's from David Lister. And David says, when permission is obtained for a use of copyright protected material, is it time limited for 1 year? The dynamic RA question was raised in the insurance seminar on Thursday.
Right,
So maybe that's something we can take up with
David
Rotary Keep.
Lister.
David is the yeah. David, what Rotary Club are you with? Can you just chuck that into the chat, please? And maybe with an email address, and we could perhaps get back to you. Would you mind? Um, I know we've gone over the hour and a
Yeah.
half, and thank you very much for the questions. They're much appreciated. Hopefully you've got something fun. But are there any last few questions while we uh, finish this off?
Brilliant.
I think we're there, Phil.
I think we are. Yeah, yeah, I'll stop that. That's perfect. Excellent. Well, David, may I thank you most sincerely on behalf of Rotary Great Britain and Ireland. Proper insight done in your usual flourish of a way. Brilliant, brilliant, brilliant presentation, sir. And like I say, I think this is a go-to text or go-to video in the YouTube library for reference going forward. But please feel free to come back through my team direct it to me. And I know Dave's email, Facebook is open all the time. So if you've got a question, ask him. He'd be delighted to hear from you. I'm going to thank Dave on behalf of everyone in the room today. Thank you very much, Dave. Have a great Saturday afternoon. Enjoy your Sunday, and I'm sure you'll be back with us very soon. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Have a good weekend, everyone. Thank you.
International Brand Centre. This is accessible via My Rotary and the Rotary GBNI members area, or by heading there directly at brandcentre.rotary.org. Just note the American spelling of the word centre. The Brand Centre itself recently removed its requirement to log in and has undergone a significant redesign, so it's much easier to find and access the materials you're looking for. Now, the Brand Centre itself is full of loads of useful information, templates and downloads, including a place to make your own club logo, create People of Action adverts and much more. But what we're looking at today is the Brand Centre's image library. There are currently over 400 images for download on there, showcasing what Rotary is all about. So from our areas of focus and global humanitarian projects to networking and social collaboration. The images are from real Rotary projects and events, with many of the people featured wearing Rotary branded clothing to add extra authenticity to your images. So once you're on the Brand Centre, on the home page, you can see there's a menu across the top with Home, Our Brand, Downloads and Templates. So the menu that you need to head to is Downloads, and you'll see there's a secondary menu pointing towards Images, Videos and Audio. So if we press View, you can see you've got another series of options. So if you feel like you know what you're looking for, whether you're looking for polio images, images of some of the youth programs, you can click on these options and it automatically filters the results for you. But what we're going to do is press View All. So there you can see it's brought up all of the downloads within the Brand Centre. So on this filter menu here, we can press Asset Type and Images and then press Apply. So that brings up all 450 images that are on the Brand Centre and available for you to download. So for the purposes of this, we're gonna use this image here because it's sort of demonstrating Rotary in the community. They're working on looks like a restoration project of maybe a community centre or something like that. And you think that's a good way to encapture what your club does and what clubs across Great Britain and Ireland do. So all you have to do is select the image you want and then press Download. And it will probably open a new tab for you, and then at the bottom, your picture has been downloaded. So from the filter menu, you can also select the drop down, which is Our Causes. So this will separate all of the images into each of Rotary's 7 areas of focus, including End Polio Now. So if you're perhaps putting together some materials for a polio fundraiser that your club's hosting, you can head to the Brand Centre and just find polio related images. And if you click on each image, it will also give you a bit of a description about the image and probably the information about where it was taken, if you want to include that on something like a caption or a social media post. So this image just here shows that it's of health workers who are going door to door doing polio immunisations in India. And this one just here shows that it's an immunisation drive in Nigeria. So that can be really helpful just to add a bit of context to the images, like I say, whether it's a caption or a social media post, just add to that more detail, which is really helpful element of the Brand Centre. So I've touched on the Rotary International Brand Centre there. So secondly, what I'm going to do is flag up 3 other useful sites which contain copyright-free stock images. There's also illustrations, video, and even audio on there. So all you'll have to do is sign up to free accounts on these websites to gain access to thousands of stock resources. So the first of those 3 websites is called unsplash.com. So Unsplash is one of the most popular copyright-free image sites online at the moment and specialises in high-quality photography. So as you can see across the top, they've got a search bar and they've also got a topics menu here as well to help you find the images that you're looking for. So let's say on this occasion you're hosting a recycling project with your Rota Kids or Interact Club. So So what you can do in the search bar, enter recycling, and it will bring up all of the images that relate to that topic. So we can have a browse through. And let's say you're doing a bit of a flyer, maybe some social media posts to promote what you've been doing. So I'm going to go for this one just here. So all of the recycled items in buckets. So you can see in the top right hand corner there, it says download free. And the little arrow gives you various sizes, so you can either download the small, medium, large or original version. So I'm going to go for original because that's the highest quality, so you can also use that for print as well as digital. So if you click that, and the image will simply download for you. One thing that Unsplash does have that other copyright-free image sites don't have so much of is current affairs and images that relate to things that are in the news. So if you go back to the Unsplash homepage, there's a section here called current events. So by clicking on that, you can see images that relate to things that are in the news at the moment. So this might be natural disasters. There's lots of images to do with the war in Ukraine. There's even a few images about Queen Elizabeth II there. So this is quite helpful because one of the harder things to get hold of image-wise is images that relate to the news. Because those images are valuable, they cost money. So being able to get access to free images is really helpful for clubs who want to talk about current affairs. So it might be in your district magazine, for example, or on your club's social media pages. You're talking about things like the war in Ukraine. Maybe in the past you might have spoken about COVID-19. Those sorts of topics are the things that are covered within the current events section. So again, they're all available for you to use. Click on an image and press download free and it starts for you. The second free site that we're going to have a look through is called pixabay.com. So very similar to Unsplash, they've got a huge variety of copyright-free stock images, but something that it's got that probably sets it apart from Unsplash is that it's also got a huge amount of illustrations, videos, and music as well. So for this one, I'm just going to show you the music section. So across the top menu, if you press music, so for the example here, I'm going to say you're looking for some festive music to maybe use on your club's Facebook page to post a Christmas message. So if we search Christmas in the search box, it'll bring through a series of results. So you will have to go through and listen to them, see which ones sort of take your fancy. So let's try this one called Christmas Story. It's got quite a title that you might think will be relevant here. So we've had a listen to that. We think, yep, that's great. That's going to work really well on the video that we're putting together. So again, really simple. Just press download and it will start to download it for you. The final free site that I'm going to flag up for you is called pexels.com. So that's P-E-X-E-L-S. When we've had instances where clubs have been found to have breached copyright, in more cases than not, it's actually been in relation to natural disasters and images from things like floods, hurricanes, maybe forest fires. This is because clubs often want to use, understandably, a dramatic, high-quality image. Perhaps it's for a fundraiser to really demonstrate the scale of the disaster or the people that are having to live through those conditions. Now, those pictures are taken by highly skilled photographers who are on the ground, on the scene in that disaster. So they're often for sale for hundreds of pounds, which is why that is in breach of copyright, because otherwise that artist or photographer would have been able to sell that picture. So what I'm going to do using Pexels is just show how you can use stock photos to work equally well when it comes to things like fundraising for natural disasters. So what I'm going to do is search for flood and see what images come up there. You can see there is a range of images there, some really high quality ones, this one for example. So although we don't know specifically which disaster this relates to, you might think that's suitable, it looks like it's in a similar part of the world. You can even press more info and sometimes it will show you where that picture has been taken. But this one, on this occasion, it doesn't. So maybe we say, we're not sure about that one, let's keep looking. So if we keep scrolling down, we'll come across these images here, which are taken from above. So although they don't show people, maybe that's a good thing for us because it doesn't necessarily pin down a certain location for this disaster. So we can see these pictures from above. It shows the scale of the destruction. And we can see it's not a European disaster by the look of the houses, potentially in somewhere like Southeast Asia. So if that relates to the specific disaster that you're fundraising for example, this might be an image that can demonstrate the impact of a flood without it having to be connected to a specific disaster. So if we click on, we can see that it's free to use. Again, just like the other sites, you can press free download and that download will start. Now on this occasion on Pexels, you can also, if you choose to, donate to the photographer. That might be something that you feel like you would like to do as well. So Canva is an all-in-one design studio. It's one of the most powerful tools for amateur content creators and professional communication teams alike. It has an unbelievable range of templates, the ability to create your own brand toolkit with fonts and colours, and for the purpose of this demo, a huge image and video library as well. And the great thing about Canva is that they have a pro version with more stock images and more video, which is available for free for non-profit organisations. So that's something definitely worth investigating for your club or district. So let's take a closer look. So I've used one of Canva's more basic templates to mock up a club networking event. So this in particular is an Instagram post. So as you can see down the left-hand side here, there's lots of options for what you can add to the post. So we're going to click onto photos, and then there's a search function. So I'm going to put in networking because it's a networking event, and it returns the result. So you can drag and drop different images in, experiment and see what works for you. So we'll just pop this image in here. So that works quite well, but we'll maybe have a look at some of the others. So you can have a look at this one, handshake here. So I'm going to go with the first one. So pop that back in. And as well as events, I've also gone ahead and made one for a project. So this one, again, we had an example earlier from a recycling project. This is a similar one just here, a community litter pick. You can put litter pick into the search, and again, it returns lots of images, and it's just a case of experimenting, having a browse, seeing which ones work for you. So I'm going to go for that one, and then there's just a share option at the top, and you can press download in whatever format you need, and that's all done. And there's a huge library of video, images, so it doesn't have to just be one image. You can easily pick 4 or 5 on a certain template that work for you. So they were 5 resources that are available for clubs and districts to overcome the challenges of copyright and copyright-free images. The first was Rotary International's Brand Centre. That's the place to go for all your Rotary branded images. Then I showed you 3 copyright-free image libraries. That was unsplash.com, pixabay.com and pexels.com. And finally we had a quick look at Canva. Canva is the all-in-one design studio, which includes a huge range of templates, videos and images, which is perfect if you're just getting started with design, or if you're really familiar and want to expand your skills even more. As I said, Canva does have a free pro version which is available for non-profits.